She knelt beside her rifle at the 1,000-yard line, methodically adjusting the scope, while the SEAL sniper team watched with barely concealed amusement. Lieutenant Commander Jake "Hawkeye" Morrison had just placed his custom-built $15,000 precision rifle next to her worn hunting rifle that looked like it had been purchased at a sporting goods store 20 years ago. "Ma'am," he said with condescending politeness, "this is a 2.5-mile shot. That's 4,400 yards. Even with military-grade equipment. Only a handful of snipers in the world have made that distance." She didn't look up from her scope adjustments, didn't acknowledge the chuckles from the other SEAL snipers who had gathered to watch what they assumed would be an embarrassing failure. But when she settled into her firing position and squeezed the trigger, the sound that followed wasn't just a crack of her rifle. It was the sound of every assumption they'd ever made about precision shooting being shattered in a single, impossible moment. Welcome to those who left a trace. Before we dive into this incredible story of hidden expertise and the shot that redefined what's possible in precision marksmanship, tell me in the comments from which city in the world are you watching this video today? And if you believe that skill speaks louder than equipment, hit that subscribe button to support stories that honor those who prove excellence comes from within. The Quantico Marine Corps Base shooting range stretched across rolling Virginia hills, its distant targets barely visible even through high-powered spotting scopes. The facility was designed to test the absolute limits of precision shooting, with targets positioned at distances that challenge even the most advanced military snipers and their equipment. On this particular September morning, the range was hosting an informal competition between various military sniper teams, Navy SEALs, Marine Scout snipers, Army Rangers, and a few civilian contractors who worked with special operations units. The event was part training exercise, part bragging rights contest, with each team bringing their most skilled marksmen and most advanced equipment. Amanda Taylor had arrived at Quantico not as a competitor, but as a range safety officer contracted to oversee the extreme long-distance portions of the competition. At 34, she possessed the certifications and experience necessary to manage shooting events at distances exceeding 2 miles, but her presence was purely administrative. Amanda's background was in civilian precision shooting, having grown up hunting in Montana before transitioning to competitive long-range shooting as an adult. Her qualifications were solid but unremarkable. Certified range safety officer, competitive shooter with several regional wins, and instructor at a civilian shooting school that specialized in hunting and long-range precision. What the military teams didn't know was that Amanda's humble credentials concealed a level of expertise that had been deliberately understated. She had learned long ago that in male-dominated shooting sports, being underestimated was often more advantageous than being recognized. The morning had proceeded smoothly through standard military sniper distances, 800 yards, 1,000 yards, 1,200 yards. Each team's shooters had performed admirably, with most achieving first-round hits at distances that would have been considered impossible just a generation earlier. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison represented the Navy SEAL sniper program, and his performance had been particularly impressive. His custom-built rifle, chambered in .338 Lapua Magnum and equipped with the latest precision optics, had enabled him to achieve consistent hits at 1,500 yards under challenging wind conditions. Morrison was confident, skilled, and accustomed to being the best shooter in any group he joined. His nickname Hawkeye had been earned through years of successful missions and training performance that had established him as one of the premier snipers in naval special warfare. As the competition moved towards climax, shots at extreme distances that would test the absolute limits of both equipment and human capability, Morrison noticed Amanda checking and adjusting her personal rifle near the firing line. Amanda's rifle was a study in contrast compared to the high-tech precision instruments the military teams were using. Where their rifles featured custom-machined actions, hand-selected barrels, and optics costing more than most people's cars, Amanda's rifle appeared to be a standard hunting rifle that had seen years of use. The stock was worn from handling. The metal showed signs of honest wear, and the scope, while functional, was clearly not the latest technology. To Morrison and the other military snipers, Amanda's rifle looked like the kind of equipment a weekend hunter might use for deer hunting, not something capable of precision shooting at extreme distances. "Ma'am," Morrison said, approaching Amanda with the casual confidence of someone accustomed to being the authority on precision shooting, "are you planning to shoot some of the longer distances today?" Amanda looked up from her rifle maintenance, her expression neutral but attentive. I hadn't planned on it, but I always like to have my equipment ready just in case. Morrison examined Amanda's rifle more closely, noting details that reinforced his initial assessment. That's a nice hunting rifle. What caliber are you shooting? Amanda's answer surprised him. .300 Winchester Magnum. Hand-loaded ammunition, custom bullets. Morrison nodded approvingly, recognizing that Amanda at least understood the basics of long-range shooting. .300 Win Mag is a solid choice for moderate long-range work. Should be effective out to maybe 1,200, 1,500 yards with the right load. Amanda didn't correct Morrison's assumption about her rifle's capabilities, but she did make a comment that would prove prophetic. Commander Morrison, I've found that it's usually not the equipment that limits the shot. It's the shooter's ability to read conditions and make the right adjustments. Morrison chuckled, not dismissively, but with the confidence of someone who had spent years perfecting the art of precision shooting. Ma'am, that's true to a point, but physics is physics. Beyond a certain distance, you need specialized equipment to maintain accuracy. As the competition moved to its final phase, shots at targets positioned at 2,200 yards, 2,800 yards, and the ultimate challenge of 4,400 yards, 2.5 miles. Morrison and his team prepared their equipment with a meticulous attention to detail that characterized elite military snipers. The 4,400-yard target was barely visible even through high-power spotting scopes, appearing as little more than a speck against a distant hillside. At that distance, a bullet would take over 6 seconds to reach the target, during which time wind conditions could change. The bullet would drop over 400 feet due to gravity, and the curvature of the earth would actually affect the trajectory. Morrison's team had spent weeks preparing for this shot, calculating ballistic data, studying weather patterns, and practicing at progressively longer distances. They were using specialized ammunition, advanced ballistic computers, and environmental monitoring equipment that represented the cutting edge of precision shooting technology. The first few attempts at the 4,400-yard target resulted in misses, though some came respectably close. The combination of distance, wind, and atmospheric conditions made the shot extremely challenging even for elite military snipers using the best available equipment. After Morrison's third miss at the extreme distance target, he noticed Amanda observing the shooting through a simple pair of binoculars, occasionally making notes in a small notebook. "See anything interesting, ma'am?" Morrison asked, genuinely curious about Amanda's observations. Amanda lowered her binoculars and consulted her notes. "Commander Morrison, the wind patterns at that distance are more complex than they appear from a firing line. There's a thermal layer about halfway to the target that's creating vertical wind shear." Morrison was impressed by Amanda's understanding of environmental factors that affected long-range shooting. "You've got a good eye for conditions. Are you planning to attempt any of the longer shots yourself?" Amanda looked at her worn hunting rifle, then at the 4,400-yard target that had frustrated some of the best military snipers in the country. "Commander, would you mind if I tried a shot at the 2.5-mile target?" Morrison's first instinct was to politely discourage Amanda from attempting a shot that was proving challenging even for elite military snipers with advanced equipment. But he also recognized that Amanda's observations about wind conditions had been accurate, suggesting she possessed genuine expertise. "Ma'am, that's an extremely difficult shot even with specialized equipment. Your rifle is certainly capable of hunting distances, but 4,400 yards is really pushing the limits of what's possible." Amanda nodded, understanding Morrison's concern. "Commander, I appreciate your consideration for my safety and reputation, but I'd like to try one shot, if that's acceptable." Morrison consulted with the range safety officer, who confirmed that Amanda was qualified to attempt a shot and that all safety protocols would be followed. "Ma'am, you're cleared to attempt a shot, but I want you to understand that even our best shooters with the most advanced equipment have been unable to connect at that distance today." Amanda thanked Morrison and began preparing for what everyone assumed would be an ambitious, but ultimately unsuccessful attempt at an impossible shot. What happened next would redefine everything the assembled military snipers thought they understood about precision shooting equipment capabilities and the relationship between technology and skill. Amanda's preparation for the 4,400-yard shot was methodical, but unremarkable to the observers who had gathered to watch her attempt. She conducted the same wind reading, ballistic calculations, and equipment checks that any competent long-range shooter would perform, but nothing in her routine suggested she possessed capabilities that exceeded those of the military snipers who had been missing the target all morning. Morrison and his team watched with professional interest, but low expectations as Amanda settled into her firing position behind her worn hunting rifle. Her shooting stance was textbook correct, her breathing controlled, and her scope adjustments appear to be based on solid understanding of ballistic principles. "Shooter ready," called the range safety officer. Amanda's response was barely audible. "Ready." The range fell silent except for the whisper of wind across the hills and the distant sound of flags snapping in the breeze that would affect her bullet's 6.2-second flight to the target. Amanda's rifle looked almost primitive compared to the high-tech precision instruments that had been unable to make the shot. Morrison watched through his spotting scope, positioned to observe the impact area around the 4,400-yard target. At that distance, even a near miss would be invisible to the naked eye, requiring high-magnification optics to determine where the bullet had struck. Amanda's rifle cracked with a sharp report typical of the .300 Winchester Magnum cartridge, but the sound seemed unremarkable compared to the specialized ammunition the military teams had been using. Morrison immediately focused his spotting scope on the target area, expecting to see a dust cloud indicating a miss somewhere in the general vicinity of the target. What Morrison saw through his scope made him question whether his equipment was functioning properly. The target, a steel plate that measured 36 inches square, showed a clear bullet impact directly in the center ring. "No way," Morrison muttered, adjusting his spotting scope to confirm what he was seeing. The range safety officer, who had been monitoring the target through his own optics, made the official call. "Hit. Center target. First round." The silence that followed Morrison's confirmation lasted several seconds as the assembled military snipers processed what had just occurred. Amanda had achieved a first-round hit at 4,400 yards using a hunting rifle that most of them would have considered inadequate for half that distance. Sergeant First Class Rodriguez, representing the Army Sniper Program, was the first to speak. "Ma'am, that's not possible with that equipment. The ballistic limitations alone should have made that shot impossible." Amanda was already conducting post-shot procedures, clearing her rifle and recording data in her notebook. "Sergeant Rodriguez, the equipment is more capable than it appears, but you're right that it requires different techniques than what works with more specialized systems." Morrison approached Amanda, his expression mixing amazement with professional curiosity. "Ma'am, I need to ask directly, what's your background? That shot represents a level of capability that goes beyond civilian competitive shooting." Amanda finished packing her equipment before responding. "Commander Morrison, I appreciate your professionalism throughout this exercise. My background includes some specialized training that isn't immediately obvious from my credentials." The range safety officer requested that all participants remain available for after-action discussions, as Amanda's successful shot would need to be documented and analyzed for training purposes. Word of the unprecedented achievement was already spreading through the military precision shooting community. Colonel Martinez, representing Marine Scout Sniper Program leadership, requested a private discussion with Amanda. "Ma'am, that shot you just made has implications beyond this informal competition. We need to understand how you achieved success where our most advanced systems failed." Amanda agreed to provide additional information about her techniques and background, but she requested that the discussion remain focused on educational value rather than personal history. The conversation that followed revealed that Amanda's capabilities had been deliberately understated for reasons related to operational security and personal preference. Her civilian shooting background included elements that were actually more advanced than the military training the SEAL and Marine snipers had received. Morrison realized that Amanda represented a category of shooter that military training programs rarely encountered. Someone whose expertise had been developed outside traditional institutional frameworks, but exceeded the capabilities of those institutions' best practitioners. "Ma'am," Morrison said, "would you be willing to share some of your techniques with our teams? What you accomplished today could significantly advance our training programs." Amanda smiled for the first time since arriving at the range. Commander Morrison, I'd be happy to share what I've learned. But I think you'll find that the most important lessons have less to do with equipment than with understanding the environment you're shooting through. Over the following hours, Amanda conducted an impromptu masterclass in extreme long-range shooting that challenged many of the assumptions the military snipers held about the relationship between technology and precision. Her techniques emphasized environmental reading skills that went beyond standard meteorological measurements, ballistic calculations that accounted for factors most shooters ignored, and shooting positions that maximized natural stability rather than relying solely on mechanical supports. Most importantly, Amanda demonstrated that her success had been based on years of practice under conditions that were more challenging than controlled military training environments. Her hunting rifle had been modified with subtle improvements that enhanced its capabilities without changing its external appearance. The rifle's barrel had been hand-selected for exceptional accuracy, the trigger had been refined to provide perfect consistency, and the scope, while appearing modest, was actually a highly sophisticated instrument that had been chosen for its reliability under extreme conditions rather than its impressive specifications. Amanda's ammunition was entirely hand-loaded, with each cartridge carefully crafted to maximize performance from her specific rifle. Her bullets were custom designed for extreme long-range performance, incorporating advanced ballistic coefficients and construction techniques that represented the cutting edge of projectile technology. "Ma'am," Colonel Martinez observed, "your equipment represents a level of customization and optimization that exceeds what most military snipers have access to. But more than that, your shooting techniques suggest training that goes beyond what civilian programs typically provide." Amanda nodded, understanding that her demonstration had raised questions about her background that she would need to address carefully. "Colonel Martinez, my training background includes elements that aren't immediately obvious from my official credentials. But everything I've shared today is available to military training programs if they're interested in incorporating these techniques." The session concluded with requests from multiple military units for Amanda to provide consulting services for their advanced sniper training programs. Her demonstration had proven that precision shooting capabilities could exceed current military standards if the right techniques and equipment were properly integrated. Morrison approached Amanda as she prepared to leave the range. "Ma'am, I want to apologize for my initial assumptions about your capabilities. What you accomplished today will change how we approach long-range shooting training." Amanda shook Morrison's hand, appreciating professionalism and willingness to learn. "Commander Morrison, your equipment and training are excellent. Today was about showing that there are always new techniques to learn and new limits to push." As Amanda drove away from Quantico, she reflected on the day's events and their implications for her carefully maintained low profile. Her demonstration had been intended to share knowledge with military personnel, but it had also revealed capabilities that might lead to unwanted attention. The woman who had been dismissed as a civilian contractor with a hunting rifle had proven that expertise could exceed institutional knowledge, and that the most advanced capabilities were sometimes found in the most unexpected places. Her single shot at 4,400 yards had not only hit its target, but had redefined what the assembled military snipers believed was possible with precision shooting. Word of Amanda's impossible shot spread to the military precision shooting community faster than her bullet had traveled to the 4,400-yard target. Within 48 hours, requests for information about her techniques and background had reached the highest levels of military sniper training programs. Colonel Sarah Mitchell, director of the Marine Corps Scout Sniper School, was among the first to formally request a meeting with Amanda. The implications of civilian achieving precision shooting results that exceeded military capabilities required investigation and potential integration into training programs. "Ms. Taylor," Colonel Mitchell said during their phone conversation, "what you accomplished at Quantico represents a significant advancement in long-range shooting capabilities. We need to understand how your techniques can be incorporated into our training programs." Amanda had anticipated this level of interest, but she also understood that revealing too much about her background might compromise the operational security that had been carefully maintained for years. "Colonel Mitchell, I'm happy to share shooting techniques and equipment modifications that could benefit your training programs. However, some aspects of my background involve information that I'm not at liberty to discuss. Colonel Mitchell understood the implications of Amanda's careful response. Ms. Taylor, we're not seeking to compromise any classified information, but we do need to understand whether your capabilities represent something our snipers can realistically achieve with proper training. Amanda agreed to conduct a formal demonstration and training session at the Marine Corps Scout Sniper School, where her techniques could be documented and evaluated under controlled conditions. The session, held 3 weeks after the Quantico demonstration, was attended by the Marine Corps' most advanced sniper instructors and several representatives from other military services. Amanda was asked to attempt shots at progressively longer distances, with each attempt carefully monitored and recorded. The results exceeded even the expectations that had been raised by her Quantico performance. Amanda achieved first round hits at distances up to 5,200 yards, 2.95 miles, using techniques that challenge fundamental assumptions about the limits of rifle shooting. Master Gunnery Sergeant Williams, the senior instructor at the Scout Sniper School, observed Amanda's shooting techniques with the analytical attention of someone who had spent decades perfecting the art of precision shooting. Ms. Taylor, Williams said after Amanda's successful shot at 5,200 yards, your environmental reading capabilities exceed anything we teach in our advanced courses. How did you develop those skills? Amanda's response revealed aspects of her training background that she hadn't previously disclosed. Master Guns. My shooting development included extensive practice under environmental conditions that were more challenging than standard training ranges provide. Wind patterns, atmospheric variations, and terrain effects that most shooters never encounter. The training session continued for 3 days, during which Amanda demonstrated not only exceptional shooting capabilities, but also teaching skills that enabled Marine instructors to begin incorporating her techniques into their own practice. Staff Sergeant Chun, one of the school's most accomplished instructors, achieved his first successful shot at 4,000 yards using Amanda's environmental reading techniques combined with his existing military training. Ma'am, Chin told Amanda, your methods have expanded my understanding of what's possible in precision shooting. These techniques represent a genuine advancement in sniper capabilities. Amanda worked individually with each instructor, sharing specific techniques for reading wind patterns at extreme distances, calculating ballistic solutions for environmental conditions that exceeded standard meteorological measurements, and modifying equipment to maximize performance without compromising reliability. The training program that emerged from Amanda's sessions became the foundation for advanced long-range shooting instruction throughout the Marine Corps and, eventually, other military services. Colonel Mitchell conducted Amanda's final evaluation meeting with representatives from Marine Corps, Navy, and Army sniper programs present. Ms. Taylor, your contribution to military sniper training has been extraordinary. We'd like to offer you a formal consulting position that would allow you to continue developing these techniques with our advanced shooters. Amanda appreciated the recognition, but she also understood that accepting a formal position might compromise the flexibility and privacy that had enabled her to develop her unconventional techniques. Colonel Mitchell, I'm honored by the offer, but I think my most valuable contribution is as an independent instructor who can share techniques without being limited by institutional approaches. The compromise that emerged allowed Amanda to continue providing specialized training to military sniper programs while maintaining her independence and operational security. 6 months later, Amanda received a request that would take her expertise to an entirely different level. A Joint Special Operations Unit was planning an operation that would require a precision shot at a distance exceeding anything that had been attempted in combat conditions. The mission briefing, conducted at a classified location, revealed that enemy leadership had been identified at a location that could only be engaged from a distance of approximately 6,000 yards. No military sniper had ever successfully engaged a target at that distance, and the mission's success would depend on achieving a first-round hit under combat conditions. Ms. Taylor, the mission commander explained, we understand that you've achieved successful shots at distances approaching what this mission requires. Would you be willing to support this operation? Amanda understood that accepting the mission would move her from civilian instructor to active participant in military operations. But she also recognized that her unique capabilities might be crucial for mission success. Commander, I'll need to review the specific environmental and tactical conditions, but if I can contribute to mission success while maintaining appropriate operational security, I'm willing to participate. The operation, designated Long Shot, will require Amanda to achieve precision shooting performance that exceeded all previous records while operating under combat conditions that added layers of complexity beyond anything she had encountered in training environments. Amanda spent 2 weeks preparing for the mission, studying satellite imagery of the target area, analyzing weather patterns, and testing equipment modifications that would optimize performance under the specific conditions she would encounter. The shot itself, when it came, would be taken from a concealed position in mountainous terrain, with the target located across a valley that presented environmental challenges unlike anything Amanda had previously encountered. But Amanda had prepared for exactly these conditions, developing techniques that accounted for the complex atmospheric effects that occurred in mountainous terrain at extreme distances. When Amanda settled into her firing position and began her final preparations, she carried with her not only her worn hunting rifle and hand-loaded ammunition, but also the knowledge that her single shot might determine the success or failure in an operation that could save countless lives. The woman who had been underestimated because of her modest equipment and civilian background was about to attempt the longest precision shot in military history, under combat conditions that would test every technique she had developed over years of unconventional training. Amanda's rifle cracked with the familiar sound of the .300 Winchester Magnum cartridge, sending a custom-loaded bullet on a 7.8-second flight toward a target 6,000 yards away. The successful completion of Operation Long Shot would remain classified for years to come, but Amanda's contribution would be remembered by the special operations community as an example of how exceptional individual capability could exceed institutional limitations when applied to critical missions. Amanda returned to her quiet life as a civilian shooting instructor, but her techniques continue to influence military sniper training programs and to push the boundaries of what was considered possible in precision shooting. The woman whose worn hunting rifle had been dismissed by elite military snipers had proven that expertise could come from unexpected sources, and that the most important equipment in precision shooting was the knowledge and skill of the shooter behind the rifle. Her legacy would be measured not in the record she had broken or the recognition she had received, but in the advanced capabilities she had shared with those who would carry on the mission of protecting others through precision shooting excellence. Have you ever been underestimated because of your equipment or background, only to surprise everyone with your capabilities? Amanda Taylor's story reminds us that true expertise comes from knowledge, practice, and understanding rather than expensive equipment or impressive credentials. Subscribe to those who left a trace if you believe that skill and dedication can overcome any technological disadvantage, and that the most important improvements come from within the shooter rather than from a rifle. We'll see you in the next story, where we'll continue to honor those who prove that excellence isn't about having the best equipment. It's about knowing how to use whatever you have to achieve the impossible.